You wanted to head straight into the Intel Arc.
Yeah, so Intel has launched a brand new GPU, the Intel Arc A580. Now, it's an entry-level 1080p GPU, but what is kind of like the big thing here is the price point, right? So it's 179 US.
That is cheap.
There aren't, like, Nvidia and AMD haven't launched a GPU at this sort of price range for ages, right? The last GPU that Nvidia launched that was, a low-level, entry-level GPU was the RTX 3050, which launched at the beginning of 2022, and that was launched for 249 US, right? So this is 179 US. Like the 4060 is 299, the Radeon RX 7600 is 299, and anything below that is pretty much you're looking at like run out stock, like older RDNA 2 stock, discounted 3050s, some discounted 3060s.
Yeah, previous gen stuff.
Yeah, previous gen stuff, like something even a bit older. You're looking at the secondhand market, and that's kind of not an ideal situation because there's nobody really catering for entry level, somebody that wants to just get into gaming or just wants a really budget PC that can run games, but doesn't have to crank the visual settings or whatever, but can run modern games at a decent frame rate, and which is like 60 frames per second for PC gaming. Like anything lower than that is like not worth.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So what have you found so far? I'm guessing you have put this.
So the review will be live and as this episode drops, and what I'm reviewing is this model here, the Sparkle Intel Arc 580 Orc OC edition.
It looks so nice.
Yeah, so like I reviewed the Sparkle, the A750 a little while ago, the Titan, and that one I said was one of the best looking GPUs of the year because it followed like a similar aesthetic to this, which is like they like really leaning into like Intel's whole blue color scheme.
Yeah, just describe to the listeners, for those that aren't on video, what that card looks like. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, so it's a twin fan 2-slot GPU that is, the shroud is like a deep blue, and there are like flourishes, like, yeah, and there's like white lines and like, the fans, the fans are black, so it kind of like there's a nice contrast there. On the metal back plate is black, and the PCI connectors are blue as well, so there's like a nice little touch.
No, that card looks slick.
Yeah, and like this is like an entry level GPU, right? And it just looks great. Like you don't expect that for like an entry level GPU. The like initial impression was, wow, this looks cool. But the other initial impression I got was that, like, hold on a second, if this is an entry level GPU, why are there two 8-pin power connectors? And the thing to note about the Intel Arc 580 is that it's pretty much just a slightly cut down version of the A750. They're kind of like mainstream GPU. And so like to me, like they probably should have called it the Intel Arc A700 or something, just to keep because it is similar to the A750 and the A770, just like cut down. And with that, you're getting at 1080p 19% faster performance than the GeForce RTX 3050, which is currently retailing for more than this card.
Wow. So you think this is a very competitive launch?
I think so. It's like somebody may turn around and say, hey, I can find a Radeon RX 6600, right, for $200 US. And that would be would probably be slightly faster than this. But that card originally launched for $330 US, right? So it's just heavily discounted, and that's like run out. So it's not available in all markets, and it's not something that's being actively produced or sold, really. So I think, like outside of those like cases where you can find, like a 3060 for dirt cheap or secondhand this or that, like, there could be a case where like you could look at something else versus this. But for its price point, for an entry-level 1080p card, I think it's worth considering for sure. I don't think it's like a slam dunk. This is the best budget GPU to get, but it's close. And the reason why it's not is that Intel Arc is kind of still...
It's very new.
Not 100% there, right? Their drivers have improved dramatically. So like benchmarking every game here, the 1% lows are great and the performance is stable. But there are games where you are getting some visual artifacts. There are some like bugs here and there. There are some titles like Starfield where it just tanks completely. And that's something that's going to be improved like with new drivers and game updates.
Yeah, that was going to be my next my next question was you don't fully recommend this. Like you said, it's worth considering, but you don't fully recommend it because of the software and driver support just isn't there yet.
But there's also like another factor as well. So like, let's say you've got an old PC, right? You've got like a 1060 or like a 960 or like, you know, like a card that's like 5 years old or like 3 or 4 generations behind. And you just want to just upgrade that PC and you just want something that's just going to get the job done and it's going to support modern features, which this does, like has AV1 encoding, decoding. It has AI hardware on it, just like the entire Arc range. And it's actually quite decent for ray tracing, but like with the caveat, this is entry level, so it's not recommended, but like it can handle.
You can do it.
Yeah. The thing is that it requires resizable bar to be a feature of your PC. So like it was kind of like in the 20 series or 30 series. So AMD kind of like resizable bar or AMD's version of it, which is like a CPU thing where if that feature is enabled on your CPU, you get like it improves the communication between the GPU and you get better performance. And like when that feature was announced, like it's supported on modern NVIDIA cards and it's supported on AMD Radeon cards and stuff like that. And it improves 1080p. It's basically for CPU limited titles where the CPU factors in, which is like, you know, at 1080p and stuff like that. So if your CPU or rig doesn't have resizable bar, which is like something has to be like a feature of your motherboard and CPU, then you're going to get a significantly cut down performance of this card. So it's kind of like, yes, it's great entry level, but like you may need like a new rig for it, or you may need like something recent for it to get the most out of it. So there are caveats to it. But I think that, like the price point, like it's not like super exciting, right? Like you're going to see like, you know, the 4060 and the 4070s, like they perform a lot faster than this. I mean, that's a given. But there are like examples where like this, like, you know, Cyberpunk without ray tracing is actually really good. Like it's almost on par with like the 3060. And like Hitman with ray tracing, which is one of those heavy ray tracing games, outperforms AMD's Radeon 7600. So like Intel's ray tracing is better than AMD's. So that's when I was saying like the ray tracing is good, but like it almost even gets close to like 60 FPS at 1080p using the, you know, ray tracing.
That's impressive for the price. It's very impressive. Can you see Intel, as it catches up on more of the software side, really starting to be competitive with NVIDIA and AMD?
Yeah, I think they're tapping into like a market with the 580. So you got the 580, the 750, and the 770. So they're kind of like the 3 main Arc GPUs. There's a lower level one, but I haven't tested that, and a lot of people say that it's really underpowered and not great for gaming. So like these 3 GPUs kind of like have similar architecture, similar GPU hardware inside, and they're just like, you know, this is the cut down version, then there's like that version, and then there's like the souped up version. And the prices aren't huge between them. But if they kind of like focus on this market, which is entry level and mainstream, they could become like quite popular, or they could like capture like a percentage that isn't being catered for right now. So like there is no 4050 from NVIDIA as of now. There's no anything lower than the 7600 from AMD. So like, that card is $269. So like there's nothing in the sub 200 or the $200 price range.
Yeah, they could just capitalize on that price range and absolutely dominate it with very high value cards. Can you see, and this is pure speculation, I'm not sure of how this works out on paper or in practice, could Intel release a GPU that has some sort of technology that enables better performance when you have an Intel CPU in your PC?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they create the drivers, so there's no reason why not.
Because I can see Intel doing that, say if that technology is even possible. Intel doing that and AMD doing that, say giving like another 20% performance across the range because you have two pieces of dedicated Intel and AMD hardware. NVIDIA won't have that option.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about, like, say, I'm using like the review drivers. I'm not including Starfield numbers specifically in my review because they just released like an Arc driver update that increases performance in that game. Just like the email, like late yesterday, by 150%.
Oh my god!
And like a couple of weeks ago, they released like a driver update for Arc GPUs for direct for like another batch of DirectX 11 games that increased performance in this game by 100%, this one in 120, this one by 70%.
Yeah, well, when the performance is 0, I suppose 100% is nice. Like, it's just more than 0. Anything more than 0 is 100%.
Yeah, and the driver software is getting better, and like it's a lot better now than when it launched a year ago, let's just say. And it will continue to get better. And if they launch a next generation, like they're working on, so this is like the Arc GPUs, which is like codename Alchemist. They've got like Battle Mage, which is supposed to be their next gen lineup. And if they like continue to ironing out the drivers and their software and let's just say like the Battle Mage is targeting mainstream performance again, but they're able to hit like, let's say like 40, 70 level performance at like $200 or something like that.
That would be crazy.
Something like that's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Like there is like a market to release like a $200 GPU that, as long as they can, make money on it and it's feasible, like,
But with $400 worth of performance.
Yeah. Or $400 or $500 worth of performance. Like, that's where I think that they need to get to. And if they get to that, then they carve out a corner for themselves. Yeah,
and AMD would obviously follow suit with the same kind of technology, this mystical tech.
Then might be forced to go, hey, we need an entry-level GPU that's powerful. Let's see what we can do. Let's now like make something like the 4060 a lot cheaper, or competition. It's
great for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely great from us.
Take it up at the low end price point is what we want. And I think this is a good GPU, like surprisingly. Like, I mean, it's not exciting because it's just entry level, but it is exciting because when you factor in the price. And I mentioned that in my reviews that basically like when you look at this performance, just bear in mind that the price point is significantly cheaper than the competition.
Is that everything that you had on Intel's new GPU?
Full review, check out Tweaktown.
The full review, by the time this podcast comes out, by the time you're listening to this, the review will be available on tweaktown.com. Make sure you go check that out. It'll also be in the description below. We should move on to